Welcome to the Great Life Experiment podcast. I'm your host, Monique Schaefer, and together we'll grapple with our messy, beautiful, and ever-changing personal and professional lives and the business world around us. I deeply believe there is no one right way to do this thing called life. Let's experiment together. As a quick reminder, friends, please note that this podcast is an independent production, and the information presented here and views expressed here reflect my personal opinion and do not reflect the views or positions of any organization or company that I'm affiliated with. Enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to the Great Life Experiment podcast. I'm your host, Monique Schaefer, and today we have the fortune of being joined with a dear mentor, coach, amazing human in the world that has helped so many people, Cathy Hawk. So for those of you that don't know Cathy, and I know some of you listening do, Cathy is an executive coach, and she really innovated the method for positive thought in integrating the mind and the body and the spirit for life and for business. She's written award-winning books and courses over the past 30 years. And Cathy is really an expert in energy, in human energy. And maybe that's a term you feel comfortable with, maybe not, or maybe you're opening up to the fact that when you're at work in business, we talk more about energy management, that sometimes life can be relentless. We can feel stuck. We can feel overwhelmed. We feel like our energy is being sucked out by those near to us, or maybe it's social media or the news. It's just sucking and draining the life out of you. And so we talk more about energy management. And this is something that Cathy has been talking about for some time. And so she really has been a pioneer and a transformer in this. She is the founding director of Clarity, which does coaching and leadership training. We were just talking about before we got started that I went through her program in 2011, and her books and her teachings are something that have profoundly shaped who I am. And I reached out to her and asked if she could join us to share a little bit about her business and journey, but talk to us about the choice point map that she has and how do we operate in the world from a lights on place. And this applies to you as a person, your partner, your team, your business as well. So I'm excited to share Cathy with you today, and we will make sure to put everything in the show notes as well. So welcome, Cathy.
So good to be here, Monique, to see you in this 15 years later in this iteration of your life's journey, and to see you so energized by it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think the fact that I'm even here today is a testament to your work and influence of constantly evolving and looking for, where do I have lights? Where is there ease? Playing to my gifts and strengths, and not always trying to do things that the world say that you should do, but finding that space that lights you up. And so one of the framings of this podcast with the Great Life Experiment is talking about the messy and the beautiful in our ever-changing world, and that there is no one right way to do this, and that it is the great life. We are all in search of this amazing thing of wanting to be the hero of our own story, and that it is one big experiment, and that there can be common frameworks, but what resonates with each of us is really different.
For sure.
So for those people that don't know you very well, can you introduce us to you? And I think, let me find that. So we'll cut that. So you are someone that I described as an executive coach. You've been in this space for 30 years, but in the past 30 years, quite a bit has changed in the world in terms of how we think with business development, career development, even being able to talk about energy and not having that sound completely woo-woo has been, and not that that's a bad thing, but there's just been an evolution as well. For you, what was the calling for executive coaching and kind of the journey that you've seen in kind of the being receptive of the message and the teachings that you bring?
Well, you were correct when you said about being a pioneer in the coaching industry, because I became curious about, so first of all, I was a master gardener, and I learned, I think, as much about becoming a coach as I did when I was gardening. And I was doing that as a hobby on a beautiful property that I had at the time. And I kept observing the right plant in the wrong place. And so it could be the greatest plant that I purchased, and then I would put it somewhere and it wasn't happy. And at that time, my husband was the right plant in the wrong place. And he was an attorney and he was absolutely looking for a new career. And so the two of us I said, well, how do I find out what you're passionate about? And my background was in dental hygiene. So I had a lot of I knew physiology really well. And so when we were talking, literally, I would notice him light up. And I said, so what you were talking about there is what we're looking for. So the question at the beginning was, can you see passion? Actually, the answer is can. And the passion shows by using energy. So let's just kind of get any edginess about lights off the table here. So, because our body is literally designed so that when we have an idea that filters out of our head down into our body, it activates our pineal gland. The pineal gland, the science now knows, and mystics call it the third eye, and it is that actually. But nonetheless, when our pineal gland gets activated by light, it will change our physiology. Now, the pineal gland is sensitive to circadian light, night and day, as well as inner light. And so it used to be just external. That's what everybody thought. But now we know physiologically, when we think a positive thought, it's a cascade of neurochemicals that come into our body. It literally lights up our pineal gland and it shows in our physiology. So when you and I and others are talking about lights on, we are actually talking about when our ideas connect to our heart, because that's part of our physiology, and that triggers a cascade of neurochemicals, and then our pineal gland lights up. And so when I realized that, so there I was with this husband, bored with being a lawyer, and he's saying, we need to do something new. And I said, wow. And I had retired professionally and we had plenty of money, so it wasn't about that. And I said to him, well, there's this new field called coaching. And when I just had heard about someone training it that wasn't sports. So I said, I'm going to go do that. I'm going to go learn about coaching. So literally I did. That's what I did. I took right plant, wrong place, bored husband, new field, and jumped right into it. Now, in the middle of all that, because coaching wasn't in its early days, they didn't have a toolkit. And I then, and remember, he was a lawyer, so we could copyright and patent things, very helpful. I realized that if I developed a questioning methodology, that I filmed people first, and you know that because you did that with me, we would film a before picture and we would take a look at it and see where the lights on energy was. And to make people understand it more, I likened it to a scale of 1 to 10. 10, you're very lights on, 1, you're lights off, 5, you're bored. And what I also then realized that if we had people do this and we had people do this, we would see a difference in their energy, because that's left brain and that's right brain physiology. And that was my background, really helped on physiology. And so my path was frequent to many people's, and that things that we learned along the way come together in a beautiful symphony of wonderful the rest of our life pieces. So that's how I came to invent one of the first coaching methodologies. And it didn't start out with me saying, I think I'm going to invent a coaching methodology. It came from following the clues that I was given, and they were all lights on clues. And it led to things that I never would have imagined. Many books,
Yeah.
thousands of clients later, and lots of soul's journey. Now, I'm going to bring in the word soul's journey
Mhm.
because my belief structure is that we are here for a purpose, and that our soul, now people listening to this may think, oh, that's religious. Actually, it's not. It's non-denominational. It's just spiritual kind of wisdom, is that we're here for a purpose, and you either believe that or you don't.
Mhm.
And even if you don't, while you're here, to live with lights on energy, to where your body is running your pineal gland healthfully, then you're getting endorphins. That's where this type of coaching has a crossover with sports. So long term, the studies of long term runners, and I've coached major NBA coaching players and teams. That same kind of endorphin response is
Yeah.
what happens when we have a positive thought.
Mhm.
So a lot of things came together, Monique, and it's just been wonderful seeing it grow up as I learned more things, as science came in and helped. Because when I
Mhm.
started, we didn't have functional MRIs. We didn't know what we know now, and that is that when a positive thought is activated, we would call that lights on, that's activated, there is actually changes in the neural architecture. And
Mhm.
we've been able to integrate that science beautifully. But it wasn't there when I started. What was there was the ability to be what we call a high noticer. I can see people light up. So
Mhm.
can you. So can
Mhm.
all of us.
Yeah.
Especially if you're don't you love it with the boys? Your boys, I mean, when their lights on,
Mhm.
wow, can you ever see it? And then you can steer them in that direction. And
Yeah.
that's what coaching with this methodology does. So
Yeah.
there are things that are kind of neutral or negative. So
Mhm.
don't go that way. Find out what lights them up, go that way, and people end up leading extraordinary lives.
Oh, I love this. We have so much to talk about. I mean, first, what you just shared, when I think of you, you're one of the first people and one of the best methodologies I've ever run across from a peak performance
Mhm,
standpoint, helping people to be in that peak performance. And I actually think about this every time I watch F1 because believe it or not, I'm a huge F1 fan. And one of the things that I love about it, like, yes, you have the car and the teams and all of that, but you have 20 drivers, 10 teams, and on every team you have two drivers.
mhm,
They have the exact same machinery.
mhm,
And the difference is the driver. So they're your teammate, but they're your biggest rival. And what you see in the behind the scenes so much is what is their head game?
mhm.
What is it that they believe about themselves? How do they handle stressful situations? Do they get on themselves because of I'm somebody that always has a bad start off the
Yeah,
line and just kind of that peak performance. So talking about getting people into that peak state, into that flow, which I know we'll talk about and talk about the river in a minute. But your methodology also meets people in this moment of either a pivot or in between or feeling stuck and wondering it. There's somehow this disconnect between where am I now and where do I want to be?
mhm,
And creating that bridge or that path and being a product manager, that roadmap, even though the details might be different for every person, of like that there is a common path that life flows on. And so how do you deal with it? Because not everything will always feel comfortable. So in those moments of frustration or discomfort or confusion, when you feel that, and for me, I've talked about this before, like I feel it in my body. This is where I feel it. Other people feel it in different places. When I
mhm,
have that feeling in my body, how do you choose to go to a lights on place?
mhm,
So maybe what we could talk about is that beautiful, colorful grid behind you, the choice point, and I will actually put up on the screen as well so viewers can see a little bit more of a detailed view. But can you talk a little bit about the framework of when people are feeling frustrated, angry, challenged? How do they interact with that? And how do you go from a lights on spot when you feel that? So let me share, right? And let me know if you can see.
absolutely. So the easiest way to understand that is we'll just pick one of the vertical columns. Leaders, there's 8 columns that all link together horizontally, but the best way to understand it is to look at the vertical.
Can you see
You'll
that okay?
see that there's a gray line intersecting that graphic. The gray line is what we call the transition zone. Everything above the gray line we call above the line, and everything under the line we call under the line. There's more light, remember, more pineal gland activation in the lighter colors above. So by color, you're a product designer. So by color implication, everything above that line is lighter and everything under the line is darker. Everything above the line is high, fast, and clear. That's how energy moves in waves. Thoughts are energy that move in waves through fields. Now, science has proven that. And if someone wants to know, we can go in. There's a whole course on that, on how to figure that out. But for our purposes today, the best way is to understand is that for every above the line with a lighter color, there is a matching pair of words that then we would call the under the line pair. And so the easiest way to use this is you take a look and you say, basically, where am I now? Doesn't make no judgment, just where am I? If you're under the line, you point to it. So let's pick, let me pull one of the cards here. Okay. We chose the word feedback. So for each one of the above the line words, then you have to go through a transition because you don't just jump from negative to positive. So negative, positive, under the line, gray line, transition to above the line. And then, so let's say you put your finger on, you just took that chart and you put your finger and you said, oh, I'm in gossip. Now, gossip does not mean necessarily talking about others. It is most profoundly the way you talk to yourself. Some of the self-talk that people do is just not useful. So is this good and that bad? No, this is effective. This is ineffective. So to take that as, so you figure it out. You go like, oh, geez, I was gossiping to myself. So I'm going to choose another word that would counterbalance that. And what science now says is that in 125 thousandths of a second or less, your physiology will go from lights off or drained to lights on. You'll have a pineal gland lights on activation. Now, that's fast. And will it stay? No. You have to reinforce it. So the journey of life is to know if you're in a negative, ineffective space or stuck and confused, then to choose something else and focus on it. So the guide is called a choice point attention guide. So where are you putting your attention? So it's an elegantly simple system. And basically it says, where am I? No judgment and no good, no bad. Just let's find out. It's so much like the GPS systems that we have now. When you plug in your destination, where am I? That's what you're doing here. You're plugging in your destination. Where am I in my thoughts?
Yeah.
And then it doesn't say like, I can't believe you're there again. No judgment. So it says, where do you want to go? Then you pick something else. Now you can pick a direct opposite, or you can actually pick anything above the line. Will have a much more effective thought result. So then you've got the thought. So then what do you do with it? That's that kind of how are we going to use this tool?
Yeah.
Nice, colorful, and all that. But meanwhile, how are we going to use this? And the way that we do it is we go to a different metaphor. And that is life is like a script. And it's like a movie, excuse me, and you're writing the script. So we know that if you want the outcome, if you use the words that are more positively, you've thought about them, then that triggers your whole body to respond. So you have the movie, you have the vision, the words, then you have the producer, that's your body, and then you have the movie, which is the outcome. So you've written the script from the director, your thoughts, the producer, to the passion, and then to the movie that you've ended up with, which as you look around yourself, it's what you've created. So life is like a movie, and if you script with the words that are positively, scientifically tested to be more effective than ineffective thought, it'll help you break out of that stuck spot. And yeah, and that's what makes the tool so effective. You don't judge yourself. You don't go like, "Ay, yeah, ay." I've done that shtick since I was 10. No, it's none of that. It's like, where am I now? GPS. Where do I want to go? Even if you don't know, just point your finger at something, shift your thoughts, shift your physiology, and then put it into an action plan. Yes, it does have to be activated.
Could we play with this a little bit? Could we do a couple examples for people?
Sure.
So maybe let's start with the leader column. So I am someone that is a people leader. I have my own direct reports, but I also am working cross-functionally. And we're working on something that is not really clear. There's pressure, there are timelines. They're not clear how to execute. Maybe they're a little feeling insecure about their own role. And so I'm sensing confusion and frustration in my team. Could you give an example of where a leader could go from there rather than sitting in that confusion, insecurity, anger?
Absolutely. So I would imagine in your role that you have this on your desk as you're talking to people or on the wall. If you know that, everybody can have a JPEG and have it up there. So as a leader, you want to ask your people, where above the line would you like to be? So they get to choose. Always have people choose their thought that they're most attracted to. So it doesn't have to be in the leader column. But it can be everything above the line. But since we are working directly with leaders and teams, there's a section for that. Then have them pick where they'd want to go. Then what you would do is have them develop a statement that they can say to themselves. It could be, we use the word mantra. It doesn't have to be that word. It could be a prayer. It could be a statement, makes no difference. But a way to incorporate that word that they might want to, that they've chosen, and incorporate it into a sentence. As they say that, it is blanking out the under the line thought. Remember, the brain that you can't hold two. Think of them as radio stations. You can't have two radio stations playing at the same time. So you pick the script above. So since we're on that one, leaders, what if your people are stuck and you're sitting with one of them and you ask them, what above the line? Let's use the leader columns. What would you choose?
I always choose vision because then I help create a vision statement out of it that goes in every deck in most meetings. So I go to vision.
Good. Okay. So then you would say, okay, I'd rather be visioning right now. That's what I would rather be doing. And so then you would create a statement out of that. Some of the simplest ones that are very effective are to say, I choose. That puts you in the driver's seat. No, there are no victims. So you can either say I am or I choose. Those are nice, simple turnarounds
Mhm.
that so you could say, I choose creating a vision at the moment. I am being a visionary at the moment. That's how you can quickly pick that word and make it something easy and fun. Now, you know that when we work with people more, we have a longer sentence that we string for a lot of reasons. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, I choose is always the best because we are choosing. We're at choice points in our we're choosing every moment how
Mhm.
we think and how we act and how we behave with ourselves and others. And
Yeah.
so to have people immediately empowered with I choose that. Now,
Yeah.
negate that they might be frustrated? No.
Yeah.
They can focus on being confused. They'll get more confusion. Remember, we know
Yeah.
that, so you can focus on being frustrated. No,
Mhm.
you'll make wrong. You'll just be more frustrated.
Mhm.
Or you could focus on something else and you'll be more of that.
Yeah. I've seen this play out too with in exercises or in group activities, whether it's with, scrum teams or leadership teams or various cross-functional teams, doing a facilitation of what's working,
Yep.
what's not, right?
Huh?
No judgment, right? They're anonymous, like what works, what's not,
Yes.
doing out what I need from you, being able to express that, and then like who do we want to be? And so
Yes.
kind of an acknowledgement of all of it, and then ending in kind of that choice and who do we want to be? And what is our working agreement in that service of the vision of who do we want to be together?
Which is your version of choosing
Yeah.
above the line,
Yeah.
choosing a vision for what they want to be, who they
Mhm.
want to be.
Mhm.
And yeah. And so, yes, it's great exercise. Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yes.
that's been my like how I've taken something and kind of, played with it in a way that merges that with like the agile framework, which is a very common safe place to start with a lot of people in the tech
Yes.
space. And I think for any if you are a product manager or you're listening and you are someone that is customer facing, prospect facing, but doing it internally as well, a facilitator, really watching the lights in
Yep.
the room, I think is the most one of the top skill sets that I look for in any product manager and anyone that I hire, right? Reading the quote unquote reading the room to understand how is your message landing? Do you have people shutting down? When are
Yep.
they not bringing their voice? When are they saying something, but that's not what the real thing is? And so
Mhm.
waiting until you're finding the real want, need,
Mhm.
desire, or they go so lights off that that's a pain point and they're disengaging. So I find that to be an incredibly important human skill that as we talk about the rise and the bigger incorporation of AI, and
Yes.
that I really believe it's our soft skills and our very human skills that are the things that are going to make us most valuable. So I think this is an amazing tool for anybody that is human to human facing
Mhm.
to watch for the lights for themselves, but then also the room dynamic that they're helping to manage.
Absolutely, absolutely. The abilities, so when we're coaching people, we coach
Mhm.
them to do that, to first of all, switch your thoughts to make sure that
Yeah.
your higher vibe. And then when you watch the room or yourself, where, and that's why it's on there as high noticing in the blue in the indigo line. The if you can learn to look for lights in others, it is the best skill set. Now you
Mhm.
can hear it too and you
Mm,
can sense it. You already said you're more sense your body
yeah.
receives signals from the fields around you,
Mhm.
more body centered. And so you can either see, sense, or hear energy. Now we
Mhm.
call it lights. And I say, well, that's lights on. And I know when I was first training coaches, they would say, well, I don't actually see lights. I kind of can tell in their voice. And it's not fake. I mean, you can tell when people are trying to be enthusiastic and they really aren't because it kind of
Yeah.
comes out of their head and not their whole body. But that ability to recognize when people are totally engaged. That's what I think of it as, full engagement of mind, body, and actions. Then those are the people that will sustain long term.
Mhm.
Uh, and be healthy. You know, we're often, it just so happens at the moment in time I'm talking, that there's a lot of confusion in the outer fields of
Yeah.
politics and how companies are hiring and firing and what have you. And so people who know how to hold their energy feel strong, regardless of all that's going on around them. I'm not saying ignore it or be ignorant. I'm saying it's not worth it to get drained. So lights off is drained. And that we have that, you had that on your picture there. So when you go under the line, you can see the person's kind of over, they're drained. Everything under the line is heavier and thicker. And it's hard. To me, it's like trying to go forward in your life, like walking through mud. And 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 that is exhausting. So people go home burned out. They go home tired. Now, we're not talking about physical need of sleep here. We're talking about drained energy. They're two different
Yeah.
things. Everybody needs to understand how much sleep they need and get it. But we're talking about that kind of draining, spirit draining, draining. And
Yeah.
and there's no need for it.
Yeah.
That's something that could be eliminated totally, and we would have a much happier, healthier culture for sure.
And I think you were just touching on this. Ben and I were chatting last night in preparation for this, and we both wanted your take. So you have a concept where you talk about the near field, right? What's closest to you. And there's kind of like mid, I forget what we call mid field.
There,
Um,
uh-huh.
and then there's far field, things that are farther away. And right in the 15 years since, or 14 years since I've gone, through your coaching program, right, with social media, with news, with our phones, it feels a lot right now that things that used to be far field are very near field. And even with politics right now, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, there's so much profound change happening that things that might have seemed at a distance, I'm hearing more and more people talk about in regular conversations how close it feels. And maybe people are feeling more anxious, and that, some people are turning maybe towards, more apathy, or like, I just can't look at it as long as I'm good. I can't deal with it. And then other people that want to engage, but then they over engage and pour out, and then they're left drained. Do you have any, and I won't say advice, but from a coaching perspective, as people right now are dealing with that, how do I stay informed but not fall into hopelessness or despair, or just confusion, even if you agree with the politics? There's just a lot changing.
Yeah.
How to navigate that in this moment?
Well, first of all, we'll define fields, and that'll help. Your personal field is you and the 2.5 feet around you. And I know you can't see it, but if you made a circle and went around yourself, that's measurable with, anyway, science has measured it. It's about 2.5 feet. And that's your personal field. The near field is the, like, your environment, is your surrounds, your friends, your husband, your kids, your home, your car, your neighborhood. And then the energy most distant from you we call the remote field. So here's what we know, both behaviorally and scientifically, is that your personal field is where you want to make sure that you're staying lights on. So you are totally in charge of that. It's your thoughts. It's how you write the script for your life.
Mhm.
It is how you are. It's the essential you, I would say.
So it's not this, or is this in the personal field now? Because I'm holding it way too close to my body.
Right. Well, you've brought it into your personal field. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But still, it is the energy. So we're in total control of our personal field. I know that people sometimes don't think, they think everything, the rest of the world is controlling me. Not true. Then the near field you can influence. So you can influence the kids, your husband, your team at work, your community, your neighborhood. You can be influential. The remote field you cannot control. So you need to understand your phone is bringing messages from a field that you cannot control.
Mm,
Influence you have over that is whether you turn it off and set it away from you, or don't look at it. So you have to make choices about, how do I want to hold my energy in all of this? Do I want to get drained when I listen to politics or not? Can I listen to it, remain informed, and not let it upset me? I don't know. Some people can't. So, what can you influence?
yeah.
Literally, in the last, I would say since the last election, I have had in my network of people hundreds of calls about this question. How do I hold my, so these are people that know that they're in charge of their own energy,
Yeah.
that politics doesn't determine their future.
Yeah.
So they understand field. And I hope your listeners will too. So I said, well, from an energy coaching clarity perspective, you all know what to do. So, one is we know that thoughts travel in waves through fields, science. So, what thoughts do you want to travel into your body and then out into the fields that you influence? And I gave people three choices that they could think about. One is they could imagine our Constitution holding steady. Okay. It doesn't matter who's in the Oval Office, we don't care. Whoever's in there, we're hope the Constitution is going to stay. It has for 250 years. No reason to think it wouldn't, although it's often challenged.
Mhm.
Then the second thing is you can, I mean, and I literally have seen our Constitution in Washington, D.C. So when I think of that mental picture, I see it in that glass case. I see it, but you don't have to. You could look at a picture of it in your mind. So I'm always saying that's going to hold. That's a beautiful document. I want that to hold. That's my intention, is to empower that document to hold. The second thing that you can do is you can send your thoughts and say, I am going to empower our judicial system to hold. And we would want that regardless of who's in the office.
Mhm.
Our judicial system is elegant. It is what makes people from all over the world want to come live here.
Mhm.
And because it's always held. Well, obviously there are exceptions. Nonetheless, that's what the thought you send is, I want to empower our jurors to use the rule of law. And then the third thing you can do is you can send thoughts to empower our legislators to use their wisdom and their common sense. And I always think more of the women legislators. That's just, I think that women are newer in our legislature in bigger numbers, and I think they can influence perhaps differently. So that's what I do. I send those thoughts, and I do that in my morning when I'm checking in, my meditation. I do it sometimes when I'm driving because it doesn't pull my attention. And I just keep sending that. Now, what I know is that that will create an influence. Do I know what it is? No, don't have a clue. But I know that if I think in fear and upset and arguments, and I know that that will send a message. And that's not the message that I want the world to have. And so I go back to, what can I do in my personal field that will allow, so then I feel fine. Then I'm like, whatever they do, you know, we'll
Yeah.
figure it all out later. And trust, that deep faith and trust in the systems that we
Mhm.
have. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
Those are universal laws too. The law of attraction. What we think we can bring, we can call us. We can
Yeah.
call to us. So do I want to call fear, nasty people arguing? No, not my choice.
Yeah. Do you have time for one? So we talked a lot about what is in our personal control, noticing the lights, our fields. what is below the line, less effective, kind of that choice point, and then what's more effective and above the line. And thank you for those really practical examples that people can take away. The other thing that I feel like I talk to multiple people about each week is they're feeling either change has happened because it was forced upon them, either new leadership at work, corporate restructuring, something has changed that has forced a change in their career. Or I know a lot of people are evaluating of, is this how I want to spend my life? Is this how I want to give my energy? I'm feeling my energy drained. I'm feeling burned out. It served me at one point, but this thing is no longer serving me, even if they're in an amazing spot. I'm hearing more and more of those conversations. And I was wondering if you could tee up what's behind you in the map above the choice point
The river.
of the river. And I'll make sure to put the link to um, the book in the show notes. But I was wondering, for all of those people out there that are either in a pivot because one was forced, or you know what, that their soul, maybe it's starting as a whisper.
Mhm.
It's just this whisper of something else, or maybe it's no longer a whisper and it's a roar.
It's a roar.
And sometimes we hear it earlier, sometimes we wait till the roar. So can you talk about that journey on the river?
Well, one of my favorite tools is the flow pattern for living lights on. And I will be very clear that this river and that guide came to me through what we would call checking into the external field, basically channeled it. Okay. Because I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'm going to draw a river and then I'm going to write a book for it. Didn't work that way. But I kept seeing an image. The closest thing I can say is that, and everybody has this ability. So I'm asking all of you to listen to the small voice in your head, and that is coming uh, from your heart, and it's guiding you, and it's always there. It's your inner GPS system. And so, much like a musician says that they heard a song in their head and then they write it down, I heard a river in my head and I drew it out. So that's how that happened. And it is, I look back on it, and Monique, I look at it, I'm like, I am so humbled that I was asked by my guides and my angels to bring this into the dimension where people could use it. So it says that we start over here, and yeah, I'm backwards.
And I'll make sure to put a screen share of this as well so people can see it.
We're not starting on the mountain. So we're starting here, and the first thing is a glimmer of light. And that's what you say. It could either be just an urging, an inner voice. Some of us, sadly, have it thrust upon us from external forces, and some people have health emergencies. They all of a sudden, they're sick, and they're like, "Man, I got to do something different. I want
Yeah.
to know what's next." So we start there, and we flow through the river, learning how to find out what lights us up. We go through the twists and the turns of life. Notice, everyone, this is not a straight line. So those are the twists and turns of life. And we get to these points, a bridge, and the bridge says that if I stay in a swirl, stuck, we call it an eddy, going round and round, repeating the same things, saying the same things, then does that say bad person? No. The bridge ends in the sand. You're just stuck. And then some people break out of that, ask a different question, and they go above the line and they look for passion, vision, and discovery. And that is where I have traditionally met people. They'll contact me, and they will say, I'm stuck, or I need to do something different, or I know I have a purpose, and what I'm doing now is funding my life, and it's not my purpose, just all those things when you know inside that it's time to change. And I always say that's your soul kind of knocking on your shoulder and saying, hey, let's get on with getting on with the rest of your life. And then we flow through, and again, you'll see the clarity person. We call them the clarity person because they're uh, genderless. So the clarity person goes and looks at different ideas and puts them into reality. And guess what? Another eddy. Whoops. Is that where we are? There. Another eddy, and we're stuck again. And now I got to get out of it. And now I've got wisdom and courage, and I can look at things differently. And then we get closer to the destiny and things. We call this the whoosh effect over here, and we call it the whoosh effect. And that is when, and then the clarity person is able to have this still reflective pond. They can park their flotation device, which could be their job, could be a partner, intimate or otherwise, whatever they were kind of don't need anymore, and they're walking, as you can see, on their own 2 feet. And the clarity person has a backpack that is packed with tools on their heart as they journey forward into a series of peak life experiences. In order to do that, they have to have learned along the way how to read their own GPS system and head to the light, head for lights. Now, that may sound strange, but I want to bring following your lights back to a science. Science is totally clear that our internal GPS system works just like what all the ancient spiritual systems have said for years, is that in the beginning was the light and then was the word. So if you just go, hey, somebody got it thousands of years ago. How about if I figure out a way to find out what lights me up and go do that and have the courage to do it no matter what? Now, you don't have to jump. Notice there's no cliffs here. Nobody's jumping off a cliff without a parachute. What we're saying is find it out, be strategic, make a plan, get coached, make it literally a bridge from where you are now to where you want to go, and then connect that with lights on action steps.
Mhm. And for me, along the river journey, I've found when I take the analogy, it's me in the boat, but I'm not alone in the boat, and bringing other people in the boat with me. And so being very particular about who I bring in the boat with me as guides along the way. Um, so for those people that are looking, whether from a team perspective or in a pivot or in a transition, and feeling like having a coach or a guide to explore more about this, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you to learn more about your work and learn more about clarity?
Well, we've got the website, and which is getclarity.com. And for people who are what I would say warm because they know you, they can call me and
Mhm.
just say, hey, Monique suggested that I talk to you. And
Perfect.
I do that. I mean, our calls are screened by my assistant in a different way. So if they
Okay.
get to me, they're supposed to be there. That's
I
what I
love
say.
it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Kathy.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing your
Yeah.
wisdom, your story, and the choice point and the flow map with everyone. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, because my mission in life is if I lit up one person today, then I did my purpose. So
Mhm.
for
Thank you.
sure.
I know you did.
It's wonderful to see you again and where you are in your life. So
Oh,
thank you, Monique, for doing this wonderful work in the world.
oh, you're welcome. All right. Thank you so much.